Every hug you've ever given has left an emotional fingerprint. Most men have no idea what theirs says. She felt it the moment your arms went around her. Not what you intended. Not what you were hoping to convey. What was actually there? The tension, the distraction, the mechanical completion of a social gesture. Or maybe she felt something else entirely. Something that made her exhale in a way she didn't plan to. Something that made stepping back feel like a small loss. The difference between those two experiences isn't luck. It isn't chemistry. It isn't even attraction in the traditional sense. It's entirely in how you touch her. Specifically, intentionally, with a quality of presence in your hands that most men never develop because nobody ever told them it mattered this much. It matters this much. You're completing the hug. She needed you to mean it. Think about the last few times you hugged a woman you genuinely cared about or wanted to be closer to. Were you actually there? Was your mind fully in that moment, aware of her breathing, aware of the weight and intention of your own hands, conscious of what you were communicating through the specific quality of your touch? Or were you going through the motion, arms extending, bodies briefly connecting, socially appropriate duration, mutual release, next thing? If it was the second one, and for most men, almost every hug is the second one, then you've been leaving something enormous on the table in every single embrace you've ever shared with a woman who mattered. Because here's what she experiences when a man is fully present in how he touches her during a hug. She feels chosen. Specifically, consciously, intentionally chosen in that moment. Not as a habit, not as a reflex, as a real and deliberate act of closeness. And that feeling, that rare, specific, full-body experience of being truly held by someone who means to hold her, creates a craving that has nothing to do with physical desire in the obvious sense. It's deeper than that. It's the craving for safety, for being fully received, for the experience of another person's complete attention expressed through their hands. That craving is what we're building today, not through manipulation, through presence. 1. Understand what your hands are actually communicating. Before we talk about where or how to touch her during a hug, you need to understand something fundamental about physical contact that most people never consciously think about. Your hands communicate your emotional state with extraordinary precision. Not your words, your hands. The pressure, the warmth, the steadiness or tension in your touch tells her something about where you are internally that your voice could never convey with the same accuracy. Tense hands, slightly rigid, holding but not receiving, communicate guardedness. Preoccupation. A man who is physically present but mentally somewhere else entirely. Rushed hands, completing the embrace quickly, already preparing to release, communicate that the hug is an obligation being fulfilled, something to get through rather than something to be in. Limp hands, no real intention behind the contact, communicate indifference, or worse, discomfort. The touch of someone who doesn't quite know what they're doing there. And then there are hands that communicate something entirely different. Hands that are warm and steady and intentional. Hands that hold with a quality that says, I chose to be right here, touching you specifically, and I'm in no hurry to stop. That last quality is what creates the experience we're talking about, and it begins entirely in your internal state, in the decision to be fully present before you reach for her. 2. Where you place your hands changes everything. This is the practical element most people want to jump to, and it's important, but only meaningful in the context of everything else we're discussing. The most connecting placement during a hug, for the vast majority of women in the vast majority of contexts, is one hand on the mid-back and one hand placed with gentle, grounded intention higher up, between the shoulder blades. Here's the psychological reason this works so powerfully. The mid-back is a place of physical support. When you place a hand there with warmth and steadiness, her body registers it as being held up rather than just held. There's a quality of security in that placement that the body recognizes before the mind has a chance to analyze it. The upper back, between the shoulder blades, is where the body carries enormous amounts of tension, where stress physically accumulates, where a steady, warm, non-pressured touch communicates, "I've got you. You don't have to carry this alone right now." Together, these 2 points of contact create a containment, a sense of being completely held that is one of the most profoundly soothing physical experiences available between 2 people outside of sustained intimacy. She doesn't analyze this while it's happening. She just feels held, genuinely, specifically, completely held. And that feeling is one she will want to return to. 3. Pressure, the language nobody teaches. The pressure of your touch is a complete language on its own, and almost no one is consciously fluent in it. Too light, the kind of touch that barely registers, that feels like you're afraid to fully make contact, communicates uncertainty, hesitation. A man who isn't sure he has permission to be there. And while this comes from a place of respect, what she registers is guardedness. Distance performing as closeness. Too heavy, a grip that wants something, that has an agenda underneath it, that takes more than it gives, communicates need. And need in physical touch makes people contract rather than open. The pressure that creates craving is something different. It's the pressure of meeting. Firm enough to communicate that you're actually there, that the contact is real and chosen. Gentle enough to not ask anything of her in return. Steady enough to feel like something she can lean into without wondering if it will shift. That pressure, meeting pressure, the touch of someone who is simply and completely present, is something the body remembers for a very long time. 4. Duration. Why holding a beat longer changes everything. Timing in a hug is a conversation between 2 nervous systems, and most men end this conversation prematurely. The average social hug lasts somewhere between 1 and 3 seconds. It's a greeting gesture, a social punctuation mark. It does not have time to become anything emotionally significant because it ends before the nervous system has had a chance to fully register the contact. But here's what happens when you hold for just slightly longer. When the hug extends into 5, 6, 7 seconds of genuine, unhurried contact, both nervous systems begin to synchronize. Breathing slows. The body's initial alertness in response to physical contact, the slight activation that accompanies any unfamiliar touch, begins to settle. And in that settling, something opens that the brief social hug never reaches. She stops experiencing the hug as an event and starts experiencing it as a state of being held, of safety, of presence that isn't going anywhere. Do not ask her permission to hold longer. Simply don't rush. Let the release come naturally from her when she's ready. And in that not rushing, in that complete absence of the readiness to be done that most hugs carry from the start, she feels something she will come back for. 5. Your breath is the most intimate part of the hug. We keep coming back to breath throughout this channel's content on physical connection. And that's because breath is the most honest thing the body does during contact. When you hold her and your breathing is shallow and slightly held, the way breathing gets when you're conscious of yourself, when you're monitoring the moment instead of being in it, she feels that. Her nervous system picks up the quality of your breathing and mirrors it, which means she stays slightly activated, slightly alert, never quite able to fully settle into the embrace. But when your breathing is slow and real and relaxed, not performed relaxation, actual breath from someone who is genuinely at ease, her nervous system follows. She exhales. Her shoulders drop. The tension that she carries everywhere, every day, releases slightly. And in that release, in that moment where your breath gave her body permission to let go, you become associated with safety at a level far deeper than conscious thought. Let your exhale be real. Let it be full. Let it release something, because that release is an invitation. And when she accepts it, What she feels is not just physical closeness. It's the rare, extraordinary experience of being in someone's arms and feeling her body remember how to rest. 6. The small movement that separates good from unforgettable. This is the detail that almost nobody talks about, and the one that women most consistently remember. At some point during the hug, not at the beginning, not at the very end, somewhere in the middle when the moment has settled into something real, let one of your hands move. Not dramatically, not with obvious intention, just a slow, barely perceptible shift. A slight draw toward the center of her back, a gentle deepening of the contact. This small movement does something specific to her nervous system. It communicates that the hug is still happening, that you're still present, that this isn't the automated completion of a gesture, but an active, living, continuing choice. Most hugs are static. They establish contact and then wait out the duration. But a hug where the touch moves, where it continues to engage, to express presence, doesn't feel like a held position. It feels like an ongoing conversation, one where you keep saying something true and warm with your hands. That ongoing expression, that continued presence communicated through subtle movement, is what makes the difference between a hug she appreciates and a hug she thinks about on the drive home. 7. How your presence in her hair or near her neck changes the intimacy level. This requires a different kind of attention because it's context dependent, meaning it belongs in some hugs and not others, and reading that context correctly is as important as the touch itself. When the relationship and the moment allow for it, when there is genuine closeness between you, and the hug itself has already reached a place of real, settled connection, bringing one hand gently near the back of her neck or letting her feel the warmth of your presence near her hair does something distinct. The neck and the base of the skull are among the most neurologically sensitive areas of the human body. They're deeply connected to the nervous system's sense of safety and care. A warm, unhurried, completely non-pressured presence near this area, not gripping, not demanding anything, simply there, is one of the most soothing physical experiences that exists. It communicates something that no other placement does. I am aware of how vulnerable you are with me right now, and I am holding that vulnerability with complete care. That communication, made entirely through the quality and placement of touch, creates an intimacy that words rarely reach. And intimacy at that level creates a craving for closeness that she will feel every time the distance between you returns. 8. The release. How you end the hug determines what she carries away. Everything we've built in this hug can be honored or squandered in the final 2 seconds. Most men release suddenly. The arms drop, the bodies separate, and the transition back to ordinary space is immediate and complete. And all of that warmth, all of that presence, all of that carefully built emotional experience gets cut off abruptly, like a song that ends in the middle of its most important note. Instead, release slowly. Let the separation happen in stages rather than all at once. As you step back, let one hand trail briefly, a last, light, completely natural point of contact that bridges the hug and the space after it. And then, this is essential. Look at her. Not intensely, warmly, for just a moment, with a softness that says, that mattered. Don't comment on it. Don't make it into something that requires words. Just let your eyes acknowledge what your arms just said. That final look, that quiet, warm, unhurried acknowledgement of what just happened between you is what she carries away. It's what she thinks about later. It's what makes the distance between you feel like something that needs to be closed again. It's what makes her want to come back. It was an opportunity to make her feel completely held by a complete person. Every element we talked about today, the placement, the pressure, the breath, the movement, the release, they're all expressions of the same thing: presence. Real, full, unhurried, intentional presence in the body of a man who chose to be there completely. She doesn't crave perfect technique. She craves the feeling of being with someone who is actually there when he holds her, who means it, Who isn't already somewhere else while his arms are still around her? Be that person. In every hug. In the small ones and the significant ones. In the ones that look like nothing and the ones that change everything. And she will not only remember how it felt, she will find reasons to be close enough for it to happen again. If this video gave you something real, if it shifted how you think about the moments that most people treat as ordinary, subscribe. Every week on this channel, we go into the real psychology of touch, presence, connection, and what it actually means to make another person feel genuinely held. These are the conversations that matter. You're already here. Stay.